Hello everyone, welcome to a new day, a new workshop. So in today's workshop, we'll be looking at charcoal portrait drawing. Now I'm sure some of you all must have heard about charcoal and some maybe use it as well and practice as well with it. In today's workshop, I will not only be teaching you how to draw portraits, but I will be showing you a few tips and tricks on how we can use charcoal sticks. So now for this workshop, we'll be making this portrait right here. So we can start by getting into it. Keep this aside. All right. Now, charcoals as compared to pencils, they are much softer. They are much easier to blend as well. A couple of charcoal sticks. So these are known as willow charcoal. So we have different types of charcoal. We have charcoal pencils, we have willow charcoal sticks, and then we have compressed charcoal sticks. So now willow charcoal, or these charcoal sticks that I have right now, these are, as I said, very soft. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by very soft? So what I'll do is I'll take a bigger piece first. What I'll do over here is I will draw a line just like that. So you can see, as any normal pencil, you get the same type of line. But if I were to try to smudge it this way, you can see it easily gets smudged. So what we do normally is, whenever we start drawing something in charcoal, we'll try to take a bigger piece and then we can start drawing whatever we may like. So now over here, for example, I will draw a cube over here, or a cuboid. I'll just darken this a bit. Okay. So now when it comes to shading, we have different tones. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll take this small piece. What you can do is, if you don't have a small piece, you can just break a part of this to whichever size you would like. So I'll create another one here also. You can try this along as well. So one of the techniques we can use is, we can either, with the tip, I'll take this one here. With the tip, we can shade it the way we normally would with pencil. So now the more pressure you add, the darker it will be. Now this one I used like medium pressure, but over this I will add a little more pressure right here. I'll make this into half, just like that. So the more pressure we add, the darker it will be, and the less pressure we add, the lighter it will be. So in pencils, you must have seen we have different types of pencils. We have 2B, 4B, HB, EE, 8B, so on and so forth. So for those, they have different darkness as compared to the graphics, or the different in the graphite. But in charcoal, we can achieve all those different levels of darkness through one itself. Now when it comes to the techniques, if I want to shade this again, what I can do is I can keep this flat down. You can keep this flat down, and most of the time it will be circular. So what you can do is, before you start shading, I'll take this piece here. So you can just break it like that. If I try to shade with this, you can see how uneven it is. I'll try it again. It still won't fill in the middle. So before we shade any drawing that is there, in one corner we'll just keep rubbing this down until we get this part flat. Now if I try this again, you can see the difference. So over here, while we can use the edge of the charcoal, we can also use the body of it. So this way, if I use less pressure, like that, I can start shading. And if I use more pressure, I can get more tones. And if I use even more pressure over here, it will become even darker. So you can see the difference in the texture that is there. So when it comes to drawing, texture is perceived a little different. Now in reality, or when it comes to the things around us, if you look at this table here, I would say it's a little bit smooth, or it's slightly very subtle rough. But if I look at this paper, it's very smooth for me. But when it comes to the drawing, we can add texture in a different way. We do not need to make it three-dimensional, as in we do not need to add something on top. With the charcoal itself, we can create texture. So if I very lightly go over this area here, it's like that. You can see it's very patchy. And this patchiness creates an illusion of texture. Now, if I want to shade something, now let's say I want to shade this. So let's look at our tones first. We have our three basic tones. We have our dark tone, medium tone, and then our lights. So for the dark tone, what I'll do is I will make this as dark as I can. And take another one which I already have prepared. It's like that. And then over here I can add a middle tone with medium pressure. And then here I'll add a light tone with very minimal pressure over here. But now if you see, it doesn't really look that great. It's very patchy, right? So we can either keep this patchiness if we want, or we can blend it out. So what we can do is, if you have stumps, you can use that. You can use tissue, you can use your finger. But this one I'll just be using my hands. So over here I will very gently blend this with the background. And then I'll do the same for the middle tone. Just like that. And then the same for the dark tone. Now one thing to keep in mind is that whenever you blend charcoal in this manner, whether it's with your finger or with a tissue, it will start getting lighter. If you look at this and if you look at this, there's a big difference. And if I try to smudge this over here, I'll just smudge one half. You can see how this is much darker than this. Okay, so now let's see the shading aspect. Now if I want to shade this cube, let's say our light source is from this side. So I can make this part slightly, I can give this a middle tone. Now let's try applying this to this cube over here. I'll give this a middle tone here. Just like that, and then I can blend it in with my finger. Just like that. And then over here, now see, now if you look at my finger over here, I already have a bit of charcoal on my finger. So instead of trying to put charcoal here again and then smudging it with my finger, I can use whatever charcoal I have on my finger itself. Just like that. I can make this a bit darker. And then over here, now one of the techniques that we can use in charcoal is, if you hold the stick from the middle, you'll get a very even color. But what if I hold it only from this side, from the left side? Only the left side will be dark. And if I do it with the right side will be dark. And you can see over here that it's starting to get a bit lighter. So I can use that over here as well. I'll put all the pressure on the left side, make this a bit dark, Bring this down here. Like that. Now as you keep going over it, it can it can blend itself. Sometimes we don't need to keep smudging it. If you just go over the area again and again with your charcoal, just like this, it will start to look blended. Now we can add a bit of shadow here and a bit of shadow here, just like that. And here I can start blending it in here a little bit like this. Now say if I bring it down by mistake, that's okay. I can just take my eraser and clear it up just like that. So this is some of the basics of charcoal that we can use when we create whichever drawing. It doesn't just have to be portraiture. It can be still life, it could be portraiture, or it could be landscape as well. Okay, so now what we can do is we can move on to creating our portrait. I'll keep this here. So let me explain some basics of portraiture. So I won't be going too in depth. I'll keep it to an understanding for beginners and intermediate, so that everyone and anyone can do this. Okay, so now when we look at the head, what we can start with is a circle, just like that. Now the head is divided into 4 parts. Some may take 4, some may take 3. So I'll show you for example. So we'll make a line in the middle of the circle, and then at the bottom of the circle we'll draw another line. Now what this will be is your eyebrow to your nose. So I'll take my pencil here. Nose. And now we'll take the same distance, we'll take it down over here. What this will be is your chin. And then the same distance, if we take it up, say about here, this will be your forehead. So we have your forehead, the eyebrows, the bottom of your nose over here, and then your chin. Now what we can do is we can draw a line in the middle. This will be the direction of your face. Now what do I mean by direction? I mean the side your face is looking at. Now if I take this pencil and I put it over here, this will be the middle line that you see over here. Now as I turn my head, this part will start to become smaller and this will look much bigger. And then if I turn this side, this will be much smaller, this will be much bigger, and this line will start moving to the left. So this will be the directional line. Let's call it the directional line. Now from the sides of the circle, we'll cut it a bit downwards like this, and we'll cut it downwards like this. So from the forehead to below the nose, and same here as well. Now we'll draw the chin over here and we'll connect it. So this will be your chin and this will be your jaw. And at the top what we can do is, from here we can draw the top of our head. Now why do we start with the circle? So the circle would be the cranium of the head. So what do I mean by cranium? Now if I draw, say, a head over here, this side angle. Something like that. So this would be the circle. This is the circle. And then this is your eye, this is your nose, this is your chin, and then this would be your forehead. It would be like that. Alright? And then the eyes would fall. We can draw the eyebrows here. So now this isn't the main drawing, this is just for you to understand. And we can draw the eyebrow here. For the nose, as of right now, we'll just draw a V over here at the bottom. And you could say just slightly below your eyebrows, your eyes will come. So I'll draw the eye over here, and I'll draw an eye over here. And then if you take the middle of your nose to your chin, we can go slightly higher and we will have a mouth. Now what's missing? Now we need to place the ears on the head. So the ears would be from your eyebrow level to your nose. So our earlobes will be a little smaller as compared to the top of our ears. And then we'll take this outwards. Same thing over here. We'll lift this part a bit more, make this part smaller. Just like that. And then we can have the head over here. So if I want to draw a head, it would start from above this line. Over here, over here. I'll just very roughly draw head. Just like that. Alright. So now we can start with our main portrait. What I'll do is I'll keep this over here as a reference. Now whenever we draw with charcoal, we need to keep in mind that this paper has two sides. One would be a very smooth side, and one will have a very slight texture. We'll try to use the textured area. Because the reason why we'll use a textured area is because it will hold the charcoal much better. Otherwise, it would be like trying to paint watercolor on tiles. You can just easily wipe the water away. It doesn't make any sense. Whereas if you put water on paper, it will absorb it. So using that same concept, we're gonna do our charcoal drawing here. Okay, so as you can see our reference over here, we will start by drawing a circle here, about that big. Now if you look at the head is slightly tilted to the right. So I will draw this over here because his head is facing to the right. Now one more thing what I can add to over here is, I'll just bring this paper back, is that when the head tilts to the side, see, I'll draw a circle here. I'll take this image that is there as a reference. Over here what I'll do is I will draw a circle. Because if you see our head is not exactly round. From the sides, it's flat. So over here, you can think of it as removing a part of the circle. I'll put this here. Draw the eyes here and take this part up. Same way over here, we'll put the nose at the bottom of the circle. It doesn't have to be in the circle. The circle is just a point of reference. We do not need to limit everything inside the circle. I'll take this part down. I'll draw the head here, bring this part in. Now over here what I'll do is I will divide this into half again. Then below this line, the jaw would start, this area here, like that. And then inside this quadrant here, we can have the ears. Over here would be the eyes. I'm drawing it very roughly right now. The eyebrows, the nose, and the mouth. And then the head would start over here and come to the front, like that. All right. Now what you can do is, when you're drawing, if your charcoal stick is too flat or too rounded, you can take a cutter. Just move this. I'll keep this flat over here, and I can just slowly start chipping away a piece of this charcoal so that I can have it flat and pointed, just like that. Okay, now that I have in a way sharpened it, we do not need to make it conical, just one side we can flatten it. Okay, now what I can do is I can start placing the eyes. I'll put the eyebrow line over here. The nose I can keep over here where the line and the circle intersects. Now the same distance we'll bring it down until here. And the same distance we'll take it up and we'll mark it there. Now when I'm drawing, I'm keeping the pressure as minimal as possible, because the darker you do your line, the harder it will be to blend it or erase it. Okay, now I'll draw this circle over here. I can connect this part here. Now this line over here would be the temples of our forehead. So it would be this area here where our temples are, and this line, this is where the circle would be going through. And I'll take this part up slightly. I'll divide this again. From behind this line, I'll bring the jaw down and then connect it over here, just like that. Bring this part here as well. And you see, even though we do not have a head, you can start seeing the head being formed. If you have any questions, if you have any confusions, you can drop a comment and I will answer it. Okay, now what we'll do is we will place the ears. We'll start placing the parts of the head first, and then we can go to the clothing. I'll put this here. Now see, I'm drawing very basic shapes. I'm not trying to draw the eyes, ears, or anything very detailed as of right now. Because if we start with the basic shapes, it will be much easier to then develop the parts of the face. So this would be until here. Okay. Now what I can do is I can add this neck as well. Okay, I can keep it like that. I can start adding the eyebrows now. Now the eyebrows as well, I will just place it over here. I'll see what shape it is taking. This one also, I'll take it there. And then bring it down like this. And then for the nose what I will do is I will draw a V. Now we have to make sure that the center of the nose comes in line with the directional line. I'll take this over here, lift it up and take it there. Same thing over here. Now for the nose, if you go to see the shape of it, from the front it would be something like this. So here we would have the nostrils, and this would be the top part of the nose. And from the side, if I were to draw it, it would be like this. Here we have the nostrils and here we have the nose. So we break it down into very basic shapes. So over here, what I'll do is I will very softly draw the nose over here. Like that. And then we'll have the eyes placed over here. Now we have to make sure that the eyes are aligned. But sometimes what happens is when we draw, one eye will be here, one eye will be slightly higher or lower. And then that can really disturb a very good drawing. So even if you make everything perfect and the eye is one up, one down, it can in a way ruin it. So one of the guidelines we can use is we can just draw a straight line over here, very lightly. And we can use this as a point of reference for the placement of the eyes. Take this part up, bring it down like this over here. Now when I start drawing the features of the face, I like to think of them as shapes. So if you see here, I drew one shape here. I'll draw the shape of the eyes over here, the eye sockets. I'll place this there. Very roughly, we do not need to draw every eyelash. We do not need to draw, the reflections on the iris. We can keep it as simple as possible. I'll bring this part down here. Some of the wrinkles. I think this part I can, if I want to erase it, I can take the eraser. So now what we're doing right now is sketching. Now I'm sure you all must have heard drawing and sketching. But what is the difference between drawing and sketching? Can someone tell me? Let me know the difference in drawing and sketching in the comments. Bring this here. Now I can start placing the mouth. And the mouth will come somewhere over here. So if you see the nose and the chin, I'll take the center and slightly higher. That would be where both your lips meet. Just like that. And then over here we'll have the chin. Now we can start adding and subtracting parts to the face. Now what do I mean by that? So if you look at this, you can see it's a straight line, but no one's face has any straight lines to it. It's full of curves. So over here, if you see, because of the eye socket, it will enter in over here. I'll try not getting too technical about it, but I'll make sure that it is in a way that you understand. And I will, let me just draw this part first. I'll just place the mustache over here. Yeah, that seems good enough. This one I can take it slightly higher there. And now, as we bring it down, we have a cheekbone, and then we can pull it inwards, just like that. Now see, even though it is slightly dark, but I am not using that much pressure. Now the reason why I say that is, if I try to blend this, you can see that it is still very visible because I made sure it was dark. But if I try to do the same thing very lightly here, it's almost gone. So that way, if you make any mistakes during the sketching process, you can easily correct it. So now, what is the difference between sketching and drawing? So sketching would normally be referred to a rough drawing, or you could think of it as something like pre-production, you could say. It is where we experiment and where we just start placing lines to see whether the placement of it is correct or not. And when it comes to the drawing, that would be more of the refinement or the final work. So to conclude, you could say sketching is a rough work, and your drawing would be the final work. Now over here, the middle part of the turban is slightly to the left side, and a bit of his ear is covered. So I'll take this up like that. And what we'll try to see is how close to the eye is the turban going through. So it is somewhere like right about here. So from here I will connect this there and then bring it down over here. Like that. Okay. Now we can start drawing, adding the turban. Again, it will be very rough. We're not trying to finalize anything just yet. Bring this part in, and then from here you will see the turban. Come up like that. I'll take this part here. Again. Now remember, the turban is on the head, it is not in the head. So even when we try to draw hair, if I want to draw hair on this character here, I need to remember that the hair is on the head. So when we do draw it, I will not draw the hair inside this area. I will start drawing it outside it. Now let's say he's gone to the barber and he's got a very fresh cut. So I will add this here, and then see, this is the head. Over the head I will start drawing the hair, just like that. And then here I can add the hair, give him a bit of a messy hair, like that. So we'll try to keep it above the head. And then over here as well. Again, you see I'm holding it from the very end, because the closer you hold it to the tip, the darker your lines will be, even if you use less pressure. Like this. If I draw a line here with very less pressure, this is how it will be. But if I hold it close and I try to draw it with very less pressure, See how dark it's become? So we'll always try to hold it from the middle or from further back. Now we can add this here. Now see, I'm thinking of this as triangle here, sort of a rectangle, another rectangle, and then over here another triangle over there. Now I can very roughly add, or I can just place the clothing somewhere here, and then this part also of the shirt will have the collar maybe here, and then connect it down. And we'll have this collar come down this way. Bring it down, then place this part here, bring the other part of the shirt, like that. So now we have a very basic drawing done. We can even add the sideburns over here, just so we don't lose track of it later on as we start shading. Okay. Now what we'll try to do is, we'll try to go over this drawing without erasing any of the basic lines. Because again, like I said, charcoal is very easy to blend. So even if I just do this over here, that line is going to go. So we can see how we started off with a circle. I'll keep it there. We started off with a circle. We drew a line for the eyes in the middle. We drew a line for the forehead, the nose, and then the chin. We drew another circle over here. And then we divided that into 4 parts, and we drew the ears. We got the jaw and then the face. And once we did that, we started placing again shapes of the eyes, shapes of the nose, and shapes of the mustache and mouth. Now we can move forward and start the shading process. So what we can do first is we can go for the very darkest parts. So you can start from light to dark or from dark to light. Or also what we can do is we can start from the middle tones. So one of the reasons why we start from the middle tones is it helps us easier, it makes it easier for us to adjust the light and the dark. So before I get into that, let me just show an example here. So now say I'll draw this head over here as well. So this is something that you can get used to once start practicing, but it's a very helpful way. So now this is going to be this head over here, but you can't really see anything. So now this is a middle tone. What we can do is we can add the dark tone here. Now see, I'm adding only shapes, and then over here as well. I'll add this shape here, just like that. And then for the nose, now I'm doing this roughly. I'm not trying to make it as accurate as possible, but this is a very good exercise. I'll have the wrinkles a bit here, and then we have the mouth and the chin here. And now what we can do is we can start just going darker and darker from here. You have this nose here, add that there, the ears, this will be the turban, and this will be the neck area. Just like that, and then we can start shading into it. And if at any point you feel like, oh, this part is too dark, then I can always erase it like that and then add the lighter tones. So now let's try to use it in this drawing. Okay. Now over here I'll keep this flat, and don't worry about your drawing being erased. That is part of the process. I'll put this here. I'll shade this area down very lightly. Wherever I see the darker tones, and if at all you feel like you're losing your drawing and you want it to be there, you can always come back and redraw it over here. Like that. Now one thing with charcoal, right, is the starting process can be a little questionable. What do I mean by that? I mean that it can look a bit messy, where sometimes while you're drawing, you might think, oh no, this does not look good, or I ruined my drawing. And that is very normal. Because even for me, sometimes when I do my charcoal works, I go like, is this looking good? Should I continue? Should I restart it? Then I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me just carry on and see how it turns out. And then it just turns out well. So trust the process. So now over here, what I can do is I can add, it's dark tone here. What I can do is I can just fill up certain areas. That over here. Now see, I'm just filling in shapes. I'm not trying to draw anything too seriously right now. Bring that there, put that here, come to this side, and that over here, and in this area as well, you can very lightly shade it. Over here also, then a bit of the nose as well. Like that. Now I can smudge it. Same thing over here. And I can bring this part down as well. So now you can already start to see where the lighting is coming from. Over here, so I'll do it lightly. Now, whenever we draw or paint anything, we do not want to start off with the finer details. We want to leave that for the very end. Over here also we can slightly blend it in here. Like that, okay, and for the ears also, I can add that there. Now this tone, we'll try to apply it everywhere before we move on to the light tones or the dark tones. I'll do this here. Then very roughly I will add this part here as well. Now if you see, this area is dark and this part is light. So whichever area is light, I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm not going to touch anything. But whichever part is dark, I'm going to darken that area a little bit. Just like this, very roughly. I'm not trying to see where each fold of the cloth is, placed, or how big or how small or from which direction it is coming. Okay, like that. And then I can very gently just smudge this area. Now, whenever we draw anything, we always want to think of them as shapes. We do not want to think of the object itself. Okay, that looks good. Here also I can do it a bit. Just like that. Okay. Now we can start darkening it little by little. Now I always start with the darkest areas first and then move on. Like over here with the eyes, if you see, this part is one of the darkest area here. So I'll make sure that the eye is placed properly. Over here and then over here as well. If you feel like you've made a mistake, you can just smudge it a little bit like that, and then we can redraw it in. Bring this part here. Like that over there. Just like that. And then now what we can do is, there's a technique called, or there are techniques. So this is one of them. There's hatching, which is basically where, I'll do it with a pencil. This is basically where you take lines this way in one direction and you shade. And then you have cross hatching, which is again hatching itself, but now they go in two different directions, like that. And for cross hatching, it can go in multiple directions as well. It can go this way also. So the more you go over it, the darker it's going to be. And same thing over here. If you want to darken this, you can go over it again and start darkening it this way. So the more pressure you use, the darker it's going to be. The less pressure you use, the lighter it's going to be. So I'll take my charcoal stick again, and wherever I want to add the darker tones, I will just place that over here again. And I'm going to do it very gently. I'm not going to press it very hard. The nose as well over here. Like that. Bring the nose there. We have this area here. We have this wrinkle over here. Now, while I may be naming out the areas that I am shading in, but when I'm literally doing it, I do not think of them as wrinkles. I think of them, oh, okay, there is a line here, then there is one here, it gets a bit darker here, so let me shade it. Over here as well, here it's getting a bit darker. Here we have the sideburn which comes here, and then you can shade this area like that. This part there. So now what I'm doing is I am, you could say, narrating my thought process when I paint, or when I'm doing this charcoal drawing. Cover this area here, and I'm doing it very roughly. I'm not trying to be, very precise. Wherever I feel that, okay, here it can be darker, I will add that there. Here also I can add a bit. Then here, this part is dark. Now this part over here seems to be relatively very dark. So what I'll do is, instead of darkening it entirely, I'll draw the lower lip first. Something like that. And then below your lower lip, there's a slight fold between your chin and your lower lip. So I'll try to shade that first over here. Again, be as soft or as gentle as you can while you're shading this area. We do not want to get it too dark just yet. We'll get all the tones down first. The ears, you can add that there. Now see, this is what I meant by trust the process. If you look at this, it looks very messy. While yes, you can see the head, you can see certain parts of its drawing a little more clear, it still looks very messy. Over here also we can add a bit, because now here is where we start to do the blending over here. Okay, now I have placed down the basic shadows that I want. Okay, now this eye has become a little higher. I do not need it to be that high. So if you see from here, it would come somewhere right here. So I will bring this eye a little lower. Okay, now I can start blending in this area here. So we have to work in layers when it comes to charcoal. We cannot directly get the outcome we're looking for. By layers, I mean we have to work over and over and over it again and again. Because then what that will do is it will give you a very nice, a very smooth blend. It's like that. And if you see, we have our light tones over here, and then we have our middle tones coming in. Same thing over here. I'll just blend this up. I'll soften it a bit. Like that. So one thing when we create portraits, we do not want to make it hyper realistic. We do not want to make, I mean, you could if you want to, but sometimes what we do, right, is instead of making it hyper realistic, we try to add our own sense of character or our own sense of narration to these portraits that are there. So we can add or subtract certain areas. So if your charcoal stick has become flat, you can just take your blade and you can start carving it. Okay. Now over here, now we can start going for the darker tones. So I'll add this here. This part of the nose also is a bit darker, or a bit dark. I think that looks pretty good. I'll add this area here. Okay, that's come a little too low. So you don't want it to be that low as well. That should be good enough. And then over here also. So what we can do is we can try squinting a little bit and look at our reference. What this will do is it will simplify our shadows or simplify the shading for us. Like over here. This can be a bit darker here. Bring this part a little lower. There. Now it looks better. Over here also, what I can do is I can add a bit of this here and shade this area. If you see, I haven't really touched the mustache yet because that area has a lot of, I wouldn't say white, but a lot of light gray in it. So I'll leave that part for later on. And then over here, what I can do is I can darken this lip a bit. And then over here, slightly bring it down. Just like that. Okay. And then we can shade this area here. Again, over here I'm using hatching. So I'll keep going back and forth to certain areas so that in case I miss out on any detail over here, I can always rework on it. This part over here, the sideburn that is there on the hair. This area here also will be a little darker. Now we do not need to make it as dark as it can get. We only need to make it as dark as we need it to be, not as dark as we see it. So over here also this area, bring it down here. Now I can work on the mustache a bit. So over here what I'll do is I will just darken this area a bit with whatever charcoal I have on my fingers. And then I can add, now if you look at this part, the mustache, you can see a lot of hair strands, but that can confuse you. So what we'll do now is we'll squint our eyes, or we'll half close our eyes and have a look at the drawing. Like that. Remember, I'm just filling in shapes that I see. I'm not trying to fill in anything too much over here. Add this here. Now we can slightly blend it. And the nose, we can just draw lines this way and shade it. Leave a little bit of white in between. Let's say that much. Over here we can darken it a bit. And then here as well. I can correct certain areas as well. So one good thing about charcoal is that you can very easily correct your drawing. Okay, that's looking pretty good so far. Now we can finish it off. We can add the most darkest parts that are there. We can add even the wrinkles on the face. So even when we do add the wrinkles over here, we want to keep it to a minimum. We don't want to add too much also, we don't want to add too little also. So when you squint your eyes and look at the reference image, you want to see what wrinkles are visible and what aren't. The reason why you squint your eyes and you look at your subject is because whatever unnecessary information is there that we do not need for our drawing, all of that just gets blended away. You can add this here. I think this part became a little too wide. And here also the eyebrows are not straight. It's got very wavy eyebrows here. Same thing here also, it comes a bit closer and then it's very subtle to the top, just like that. And then here a little bit, and here also we can add some definition. On this side as well. Now if you look at the beard here, it's not possible to draw each and every strand. So what we're going to do is we're just gonna draw suggestions. So what do I mean by suggestion? So there are these lines known as suggestive lines. Now if you look at this image that I drew over here, what does it look like? A square, right? Or if I draw this over here, what does it look like? A smiley face. But what I wanted to draw was just 4 different lines, but these 4 lines, they look so similar that it suggests to you that it is a square or a rectangle. Whereas over here, I just drew 2 circles and a wavy line, but what you see or what you think is a smiley face. So I am suggesting that it is a smiley face without having to actually draw it. And over here I'm suggesting it is a rectangle without actually having to draw a rectangle. I hope that makes sense. So the same way over here, we can finish off this nose here. We can just give this nose a little bit of refinement. What I can do is I can slightly erase this nose. Like that. Okay, that should be keep it very subtle. Okay, and then over here also, this part I can blend it in a bit. We don't need it that dark. The back of the head, and the ears also over here. Now once we're done adding the dark parts, okay, what I'll do is I'll finish this area on top first. I'll show you something really cool, which the first time I saw it, my mind was blown. I was like, how in the world did... So in college, when my professor had initially showed me this, I was like, how did he do something so drastic with just, minimal lines, with such low effort and such less work? I was very surprised, which I will be getting right into as soon as I'm done with this area here. Over here I can add very lightly, I can add these lines here. I don't need to add too much also to it. And this part here as well. Now we can just darken this area here. So what I'll do is I'll just shade this part here, and then I can add the darker lines. Okay, this part has a bit of the shading in. This part here. Again, very roughly I'm adding the shading over here. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. There you go. I'll keep that part a bit soft. Okay, now what I'll do is, wherever there is light, I will erase that area. So for example, over here, I'll just start erasing little by little wherever it is necessary. See over here. What this will do is it will create a lot more depth. Here as well. Okay, and then this area here, add a very light detailing for the head, sorry, for the turban, in a very subtle way, as subtle as possible, or as minimal as possible. Okay, now we can finish it off by giving it a bit of a background. We can just darken this area a little bit. That's about that there. Okay, and then over here I can do is I can just add some lines. I'm doing this very gently to the background here. And then I can tilt this a bit. There you go. So this is the final work that we have done. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this live stream. We have seen how we can use charcoal to get different varieties of textures, different shading methods, different blending methods, and especially we've seen how we can construct the face from the very basic shapes to how we can start shading them, placing all the elements in, and the thought process of how when we do start a portrait, how we can go about it. So thank you so much everyone for being part of a live session. Every day at 12:30 and at 5:30 we have our workshops where we come up with different and unique workshops for you all to have a look at. You can have a look at our products as well on our app, Rooftop app, or you can visit